Okay, so you did your cold open, you did your gap statement, you showed them a negative present, you maybe alluded to a positive future, or you just doubled down and showing them a negative present. You didn't do an agenda, you didn't do housekeeping, you didn't waste their courtesy attention, and you haven't introduced yourself yet. Now's the time to introduce yourself. And here's why. We open with the gap or the cold open because we want to create that interest and that tension. We want to show them the negative present and really drive it home. But then for everything else we're going to say, we depend on them believing, knowing, depending on how you want to phrase it, knowing or believing that you are the right person at the right time in this right place to tell them how to get to the positive future. And that means we need to establish your credentials. We need to establish the subject matter experts, expert authority. We need to maybe establish their background. We need to possibly show the company and establish their bona fides, their credentials. And we need to do this really quickly. So the question that we're answering, that the audience would have in their head, is how do I know I can trust you and what you're showing me? So this is where you have your maybe one slide with your picture on it. Try to have your picture on it. Even I know you're on camera anyway, but try to have your picture, on the slide, especially if you're not on camera and you're just showing slides and there's no video of you at all as the speaker. You definitely want to have your picture on the slide, maybe even on the title slide. If you or the company have won any awards, that's fine. You'll kind of have to decide if you're going to stress your expert authority or the company's expert authority. It doesn't technically matter. Most of my customers, they're in tech, they're in engineering, heavy kind of stuff. For the most part, the company, the audience has at least heard of the company. They've seen the company's name. They've had plenty of opportunity to go visit the company's website if they wanted to. I lean towards establishing the credentials for the speaker and just maybe flavor in a little with the company. I've been with this company for 3 years now. It's been a really interesting experience. They're one of the largest companies in this field. They've got offices all over the place. I work out of the Atlanta office, something like that, right? You're just alluding to it, that you're part of something that's established and, bigger than you. But we do tend to like to stress the speaker, the expert, subject matter experts, credentials and bona fides instead, because it's very hard for an audience member, especially one who might only be paying half attention right now, to identify with a company, unless it's a really well-known company. But they can identify with a human being who they can hear and see. So what you're trying to answer here as quickly as possible, we've mentioned somewhere else in the course, I think, you don't spend a lot of time on your own credentials. You assume the sale. You're in assertive mode at this point. You act as if, of course, everyone probably partly has heard of you, even though they likely haven't. And of course, everyone should believe that you know what you're talking about, because you absolutely do know what you're talking about. So you get through this as quickly as possible. I wouldn't recommend that you spend more than 3 minutes, not just talking about yourself, the entire section of opening up with the gap and then introducing yourself and or the company. The whole thing should only take 3 minutes combined. The reason, the reason for that is that, it shouldn't take you very long to establish the gap. It should be pretty stark and understandable right off the bat. Otherwise, it's really not a good gap. That's why I provided those 3 examples. It's hard to break out and be boring if you stick to one of those 3 examples. But secondly, you don't stick around and tell people how great you are or how the company is for very long. Either they'll get bored with you, they'll get slightly put off by you keep talking about yourself. They'll get bored with the company data. Look at this map of the world with all the pins on it that show all of our office locations, stuff like that. I've seen companies put the picture of their headquarter building. Honest to God, a building's a building. Unless it looks really unique, you can dispense with the picture of the company's headquarter building. Everyone knows what a building looks like, right? An office building looks like. So, and also you don't hang around in this section very long, because you don't keep telling people that you're honest. I'm honest. I'm really honest. You should trust me because I'm really honest. You don't keep belaboring the point. Otherwise, people start to suspect that the opposite is true. So you do your gap, you establish your bona fides, assuming with your tone of voice and speed and everything else, assuming that everyone in the audience should accept everything that you said so you can move off of this and get into the next thing and go. This is a tricky bit, right? It might take a little tiny bit of rehearsal here. Like you might want to say this out loud as if you're talking to an audience 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to speed through it. That seems like you're hiding something, but you just go through at a brisk pace with the tone of voice and attitude is, I am the senior scientist for this, and I work on this, and here's my background, and today I'm going to tell you about blah, blah, blah. And then you move on, okay? Don't hang out in this area. It just looks weird, and no one wants to spend any more. The audience doesn't want to spend any more time in this period either, no more than they have to. So just dispense with it and move on.